All right, welcome back to Daybreak on Trust Television. And it is that segment where we bring you all the newspaper headlines from select national newspapers this morning. And as is tradition, we would begin with the Daily Trust. And the Daily Trust this morning is staying with the salary of what is considered an over-bloated ministers list. Tinubu's 48 ministers to gulf 8.6 billion in 4 years. More to be spent on extra code, others earnings to shoot after Ramak wages. That's the Revenue Mobilization Fiscal Commission's wage review.
Isn't it?
It is.
Like the numbers don't make sense in this at this particular time.
Absolutely. It is wasteful. Implement oral science reports now. That's from experts. And National Assembly should trim cabinets to 20. I'm talking about trimming. We have a detailed infographics there on the front page telling you what the trajectory has been since the days of Obasanjo. Between 1999 and 2007, we have 40 of those. And then we stepped down to 39 under the short period of the late President Yar'Adua. And then we came down to 33. Apparently, the list we have had, which basically suggests that there were some states who had no cabinet position.
That was against constitutional provisions also.
Yeah.
But you look at the graph, right, and you understand that when we had more money, when we could actually afford more ministers, we had less. Too many of them. And now when we can't afford them,
we have so many of them. Well, let's see how this pans out. Moving on to other stories. Insecurity, Defense Minister demands timeline from service chiefs. I hope this demand on the one hand is also followed by supply of funds and the resource that is needed to basically bring this to a halt. To other stories, AU suspends Niger as ECOWAS delegation assures of diplomacy. And UK reduces tariffs on 3,000 Nigerian products. That's good news for our exporters, if you like. And pilot of crashed nav jet buried in Zaria.
A true national hero.
Yeah. You can't frustrate me, Umahi tells civil servant. I don't think it is time to start spoiling for war. You should show that with your actions. And British police to arrange Desiani October 2nd over bribery. Alas, if you like. And father kills son, burns corpse over cassava in Akwa Ibom. This is disgusting to say the least.
On the whole Umahi thing, they say the best form of defense is to attack.
Yes.
So I think he's trying to disarm them as soon as possible. Well, anyway, is that all?
That's it on the front page of the Daily Trust.
All right, let's take a look at the front page of the Punch newspaper for today, shall we? Starting from the very top. The latest from Niger Republic. AU plans fresh sanctions. Abdusalami warns against war. Federal government, states, local governments share 966 billion naira for the month of July revenue. And EFCC mom as Dezani faces bribery charges in the UK. I don't know if they're party to the litigation in the UK, but I'm sure they are watching keenly as far as that development is concerned. So take a look at this story on page 9 if you're interested. Below the nameplate, anger as states warehouse rice, delay palliative sharing. Borno distributes rice to 400,000 households. Workers lament hunger, demand relief. And Labour insists 5 billion naira not enough. Gombe promises workers 10,000 naira. Anambra 12,000. So there are various approaches to the various issues around palliative distribution. But I can tell you most people in Borno State are happy because, I mean, people are not dealing with 2 measures or 3 measures. We see people taking bags and bags of rice and other things. And I think that even that might be a stopgap measure, but is considerably good enough for some families at this point in time. But as you can tell, across the nation, there is still this growing dissatisfaction with the way the government is approaching this issue. Naira slump, manufacturers raw material imports hit 8 trillion naira. And in other news, associates mourn slain senators aide demand killer soldiers arrest. And there were actually 2 stories that were reported on this one Sunday. I don't know if you've noticed. It all happened in Lagos. Allegedly, the killers were wearing the military fatigue, killed this particular driver, dumped his body, took away the car, and there was also another individual that was reportedly killed in similar manner at a checkpoint, also allegedly by people wearing military fatigue. So there's call for investigation into that. Pages 4 and 5 has details of that. And finally, Ogun doctors plan September 1st strike over unpaid allowances. That's it on the Punch newspaper this morning.
And moving on to the Daily Independent. That stays with the story from Niger. Abdul Salami presents Niger junta demand to Tinubu. AU suspends Niger demand restoration of constitutional order. And two other stories. Akeredolu plan return sets acting governor in panic mode. That's from Ondo State. Why should that be? Really, I mean, if you're holding fort for someone and the person is returning, why the panic? Well, you want to get the details of that issue.
I mean, it could be misleading as far as the headline is concerned. But then again, you realize that there were tensions about even the deputy governor assuming the role of acting. So I wish the man good health, and I wish he comes back.
Absolutely. Tinubu asks NMIC DG to proceed on terminal leave, appoints acting CEO. And two other stories, PDP knocks Tinubu over bloated cabinet, and endurance mantra. Tinubu to create 10 million jobs through Humanitarian Affairs Ministry, Edu. Well, by these jobs, I hope it's not handouts.
Listen, we're going to keep tabs on all these promises and all these pledges that they're making, and they should be well aware of that.
FG considers electric cars for mass transit schemes. Lagos Bar Commissioner orders from bringing PAs from outside.
I love this one.
Beautiful.
They say that if you want a personal assistant, it has to be someone from the civil service, within the system itself. But I do hope that with more responsibility, you're going to get more in terms of remuneration and everything else.
Absolutely.
But I really think this is a good move.
Absolutely. It won't be business as usual, says rep speakers. No civil servants can frustrate me. And that's coming from Umai. We mean well for Nigerians, says Oluremi Tinubu. And if Nigerians will respond through me, I would say yes. We want to see the world. We don't want to hear what you mean. We want to see what you mean. And that's it on the front page.
Yeah, there's a lot of talking. We want to see a lot of doing also. I believe finally, let's take a look at the front page of the Business Day newspaper. There isn't a lot to go by, but here is a look at the front page of the Business Day for today. Nigerian health tech firms draw investors' interest. What is that all about? You can do some further reading on pages 2 and a lot more on how this is linked to the development in the healthcare sector. Naira hits new low at 900 Naira to the dollar after JP Morgan disclosure. Yeah, whenever JP Morgan says something not so positive about you, it is going to have a huge negative impact on your outlook. And let's just say that things are not looking good so far. It says, it is significantly lowering its prior estimate. And you don't want that.
Well, we'll take that when we come to the conversation.
Yeah, okay. 10,180 Nigerians moved to Canada in 6 months. The Japa syndrome, it's still peaking. Hasn't peaked yet because more Nigerians are flying out of the country in search of greener pastures. UK agency charges ex-oil minister Dizani Alison Madueke with bribery. And finally, Tinubu meets with Toure Abubakar Ribadu over Niger coup. Page 29 has all the details about the impasse in Niger Republic.
All right, and back to the studio. We have with us, as usual, a regular analyst, former director of news, the Voice of Nigeria, Mr. Ben Shaman. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Good to see you.
You're looking like a young groom waiting to take a bride.
I tell you.
You don't want Mrs. Sherman to hear that. You say
No, he would do the explaining.
I wish I could just simply go and do my farming, harvest, sell to you people in the city here, and I have it nice, you know. But
If wishes were horses.
Man-made situations, God has given us the rain, given us the brains, the hands, the mouths, the legs, the farm, you know, but we are not controlling it. Anyway,
Sorry for another day.
Yes.
Right.
Indeed, story for another day. I mean, we begin with the Daily Trust. It's still fanfare in the air about the swearing of these ministers. Some of them have been threatening thunder and brimstone of how they will move heaven and earth. Some are issuing threats, if you like, to say you can't or you will not frustrate me.
You can't. No, they made it, you can't.
Yeah, whatever that means. But of significant importance is the way Daily Trust choose to look at this today. In 4 years, we would have expended nearly 9 billion, and that's the basic. We're not talking about ESTA codes from travel, which must happen, which will happen, if you consider Nigeria's size and its participation in a lot of bilateral and multilateral engagements. 8.6 billion. What do you make of that figure and the size of this cabinet?
It's the making of oligarchy. Why do I say so? These are people from the state, they were commissioners, moved to be governors, became senators, now they are ministers. With all, every movement they move, and they are busy entrenching their families here and there. Why is it not an oligarchy? Now, you have this blotted, you spend this on them. You look at the National Assembly. Now, compare the third arm of the government, the judiciary. Do they get all of this? And that's why sometimes you see corruptive tendencies in the judiciary, because they tend to compare themselves. You know, the judiciary, I mean, whatever they're going to do, whether they're going to do some contract work, some this, you still find the hand of the executive in it. Now we're spending all of this with Mr. FCT coming to say, that we pull down, that we destroy. You see, in doing that in the city, you have made the villages so unsecured. Now they moved into this place, they are moving in urban, they are living in urban slums. You send the bulldozers again, all the batches destroyed. Now, why don't we also begin to move some of this infrastructure, make some inroads? Those who cannot live in Asokoro, let open up in some areas. Let there be areas designated as semi-urban, the low, but they are in civil service, so that they live reasonable lives. But the situation where someone works in Federal Secretariat, either Area 1, and you now live in Suleja, or you live in Kefi, you want to make it, it's so impossible, a kind of a thing. And you have Minister Omar is saying civil servant cannot frustrate him. But when you frustrate him to the extent that in the city, he now lives so far. When does he come to the office? And when does he go? I
mean, there are so many issues, but speaking to the resources that will be expended as a result of the services that these ministers will be rendering, and you look at the times that we're in right now, it does look a bit insensitive, isn't it, compared to what Nigerians are going through. You did talk about them being former governors, senators of the Federal Republic, and there are a good number of them, I think 8 or thereabout. Is it 8 now without Erufai as former governors? And some of them, as we're meant to understand, even have life pensions after serving the 8 years. Why aren't we seeing that compromise, especially coming from the principal, Mr. President, saying, listen, you people surely don't need the money. I mean, 600,000 naira plus a month is something that all of them, I believe, can do without. Even the 31 million naira monthly allowance. I mean, sure, they're not going to turn the money down, but if the president had asked them to sacrifice this in the interest of Nigeria, just imagine us saving that much money to inject it into our fight against poverty or infrastructure or things like that. Why aren't we trying to lead by example? Why aren't our leaders trying to lead by example, especially when it comes to making sacrifice for this country?
Honestly, this is the dirtiest level of capitalism. Abdullah, let me just tell you, when I was in service, our office was still in a radio house then, a House of Representatives member. We went for a budget defense. And then I said, yeah, Voice of Nigeria, it's time for me to take my pound of flesh from you. Said she was in Radio House, she went to park and they blocked her. They said the place belonged to Director of Engineering. And honestly, we didn't have a Director of Engineering that time. Then said, I'm going to see your budget, you see fire. That's a lawmaker. I mean, it becomes so pettish. Now you you having this kind of, I mean, whooping sum. I mean, to just take care of a few people. What about those who indeed voted them in? It's so insensitive, and when you look at what the National Assembly even voted for themselves, 110 billion just for them to settle down, change dress, to work for you, Abdullahi, and Sunday, and Ben Shaman and the rest, to work for us. They need that. Now the executive is coming up with their own. Just look at it. And what has the voter got on ground? Is it education? You are now saying that university students will have to pay this via some loans. And of course, some people are simply saying it's bye-bye to education at the point. And you find some people saying, well, must you be in the university? Yeah, we must not all be in the university. I agree. But those who have chosen to be there, why don't we ensure that they have this education, and very qualitative one? And you look at what is happening to even the technical education. That will be the brain box, the backbone of the Nigerian economy, the growth itself. You don't see it. Now, if we must also have that, where is security? And if we are talking of security, gentlemen, can we start from feeding ourselves? In feeding ourselves, what are our farms looking like? I mean, it's too much on sensitivity.
Let's move on to other issue. This one is around your 40, and that's coming from the Defense Minister asking the service chiefs for timeline. Is it the right way to go? Should they be pressured into giving a timeline? And realistically, we know we have not provided the right kind of ammunitions or boots on the ground to take on this fight the way it should be. What exactly do you think he's trying to achieve with this kind of demand?
Yeah, you see, if you go to the naval dockyards, the naval authorities there, I tell you, they are busy making some fighter boats. It's good, a thing. But are they being supported the way they ought to be? Now, if you go to Defense Industry Corporation, Kaduna, they've started producing quite a lot of guns that are almost matching what they call AK-47, and some with more firing power and range too. Are they being supported the way they ought to be? Now, there are things you call MRAPs, mine resistance personnel carriers. There's one called Unzogu. During the days of Buratai, there's this Igbo general, he's called Unzogu. He created those things. They've been commissioned. They are using them to fight the war. But why is it that we cannot, therefore, send in money, produce these things? Because the level in which we import some of these things, and by the time you're now placing a demand, the military is telling you we need so equipment assorted. Because what you need to use in a rainy season is different from what you need in a dry season. You know, even the camouflage, it has to tally with the environment there. What you use in Niger Delta is different from what you use in central Nigeria, from what you use in the northeast. Just a moment, Abdullah. So in doing all of this, when you say, I give you timeline, is the money given? And there's one other thing. They put a request, okay, it is sent to council, okay, it is approved. Approval on paper does not mean money has come. And when that approval is given, is then you begin to look at where are the contractors. They have to manufacture them before you bring. At that point, time lapse, and the insurgents will be making a kind of having a spree day, so to speak.
Yeah, you look at that statement, right? It's quite political in the sense that it's trying to show this commitment and urgency that is needed. But then again, history shows us that it really doesn't work to a great extent, because we remember President Muhammadu Buhari, when he first came into power, asking the theatre to relocate to Maiduguri, for instance, and in several occasions his directives were not followed to the latter. For instance, did give them deadlines over deadline, didn't work. President Tinubu did not give them this sort of deadline, and he's a commander-in-chief, and the most that he asked for them is synergy, work with one another to solve the problem. Do you think it's out of place for the defense minister, who, with all due respect, is inexperienced? I mean, even as governor of Jigawa, he hasn't faced quite the security challenge that most governors have faced within the region or across the country entirely. Do you think it's out of place for him to have made that statement, even when the commander-in-chief is not requiring the service chiefs to give him a timeline?
Yeah, I may differ a bit when it comes to the situation in Jigawa State, as to whether the Minister of Defense now failed when he was a governor.
No, not failing. I'm saying in terms of even experience with security challenges, for instance.
But I ask you this question, or let's put it this way. If you look at Boko Haram, so intensive in Borno, it came to Yola, and you could see it came to Yobe, it jumped a kind of to Kano. You don't find too much Boko Haram activities in Jigawa. I stand to be corrected. And even what you call these intensive farmer herders clashes, you don't see them so much in Jigawa. Just cast your mind back. Whatever was happening there, I don't know. But again, giving a timeline, I would not blame him. Maybe, if you recall, when many of them were governors, the moment there was a bath that was crying overnight in the stream, they rushed to Buhari. I need help, I need this. Always rushing to sit. So if he has as minister, all the service chiefs are under him, and he feels, look, I can say this, and I therefore order you do this. You know, I think it's not out of place. So that we know that he's also in charge. Not that civil service, service chiefs will now be jumping. Let me see NSA, let's go and see the CNC, when indeed you have the Minister of Defense.
But the CNC is the commander-in-chief.
He's the commander-in-chief, but you see, it should be in such a way that the issue is totally out of control. When you go to brief the CNC, you've gone to say, oh, we've quelled, so we've overcome that, Not that you go and tell and give him a hopeless situation. CEC, look, we are, in fact, they are gaining more than us. We captured, in fact, they have recovered those things. You will not show that you are in charge. Therefore, as Minister of Defense, you must work in tandem with your service chiefs. Let the president, we know the buck stops on the president's table, but I tell you, there are times people need to do the work themselves. Not that you be going to the press, or how
high are the stakes for him? Because he's one of those ministers that elicited mixed reaction from members of the public. Where the conversation is, he's a square peg in a round hole, and we know how difficult it is going to be to fit in a square peg in a round hole, because he's a civilian. I'm not sure he's had any sort of military experience.
Not even Boy Scout.
Right. Obviously, he was Chief Security Officer of Jigawa State for the past 8 years. So I suppose he's exposed to some level of understanding to security briefs and things like that. How high are the stakes, and how easy do you suppose it is going to be for him? Is it going to be for him to work with the service chiefs who are, quote unquote, the ones who have a skin in the game as far as the modalities and the logistics of the security architecture is concerned?
On this same seat, when we looked at when they were ministerial designates, I said, look, I can't see a security man who knows the onions here. On this same table, Some of us said, oh yeah, Rabbi Ukwankwaso was there without being a military man. Okay, we swept past. Now here we are. But I still think that we need someone with security background. More so, those who have fought the wars over there and they know the nooks and crannies of those areas. I think that they ought to have been given that opportunity to be Minister of Defense. Now you'll be having a council, Federal Executive Council meeting, and security issues are being discussed. Well, the experts are really not there. No one to give a kind of an idea, an inkling. Look, these issues, these are the approaches, and we have undergone studies in Pakistan, and we saw this in the case of US versus Afghanistan. These were the approaches and all that. Now, it's only when they've taken decisions you give to service chiefs that, oh, this thing is porous. It's porous. Porous because it's this. But again, the minister, if you know you are not so much an expert there, listen to them. In as much as you put it into some analysis, I'm sure you will get some people behind the scene informally to say, come, this issue we are going to approach. There will be advisors outside that you don't know, you know. And if he listens to some of them, he might succeed. Right. But if you go there trying to, as a civilian, trying to command them, go and do this, when indeed you've not given them the money they want, look at the budget. Truly, how much do they receive at the end when you see that figure?
All right,
how much do they
quickly,
receive?
I would like you to, we're running out of time, if producers can put up the Punch newspaper for viewers at home. It is talking about anger in the land as the palliatives that have been in the works for so long finds their way into warehouses for only God knows how long they will be warehoused and all of that. It is beginning to spark anger across the state. If our producers can put back the Punch newspaper there for just to contextualize what we are talking about. We are beginning to see,
and here we are,
you know, basically those palliatives not going straight to where they should go.
And the report from by Hamid Oebade from Osun State, where some residents are saying, listen, we don't need your 2 cups or 3 cups of rice. Just fix our refineries. And yeah.
How do you put this contrasting reception?
It's the truth. Now, you see, today farmers are buying fertilizer 50 kg at the rate of 25,000 naira. In some places, I'm told it's higher. Now, you don't see government fertilizer there. They are not subsidizing farming. Now, these same farmers are told to harvest. By the time they harvest, I mean, the government rushes to buy. You now keep them in silos. Where are the government farms? Yes, farms. So the government will carry all of this and keep in silos. 3 weeks ago, they said, the president said, take palliatives to this, sell at subsidized rate. We need, see, you don't need to go into that. Bring fertilizer. People will farm, feed themselves, and when governors begin to carry all of this and they warehouse them, they want to use them as a kind of the campaigns have since ended. So what do you want to achieve by holding them? I hope we will see bring back what they call SARS, end to SARS. Yes. People rush warehouses and carry even tractors. They remove tires and all that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ben Shaman, former Director of News, Voice of Nigeria. I wish we could continue with this conversation, but very sorry we have to draw the curtain at this point. You know how it is with broadcast journalism. Exactly. Time is king. Absolutely. Thank you very much for coming up.
It's a great pleasure.
All right. This is the much that we can bring to you today. We promise you an exciting morning. I'm sure we have delivered on those promises. Keep a date with us again tomorrow for more exciting outcomes from Trust TV. I am Sunday Michael Ogu.
My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. As always, thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day. Good morning.